Welcome everyone. We're going to get started here. It is 10 a.m. on the Pacific Coast here. We are very excited to be talking all about live auction fundraising today. 'Tis the season. We are coming up on the fall fundraising season. I'm sure many of you out there are prepping for a live auction coming up very soon. So we're excited to hopefully share some very useful tips that you can use in your preparations and during your events. We're going to go ahead and get started right now. My name is Ian Lauth. I'm the VP of Fundraising here at Winspire. I'd like to welcome and thank Tracey Lorts. She has a job title upgrade. I forgot to change it on this slide. What's your new job title there, Tracey?
I am now the Senior Marketing Events Manager for Greater Giving, which means that I coordinate every single event, not fundraising event, but the events that our company goes and either exhibits at or we host. We host educational events all over the country, so I help coordinate and manage all of those that we do all year long.
Great. Awesome. Well, I'm sure many of you guys have hopefully been to maybe some events like AFP or things like that. If you do get a chance, definitely come to either the Greater Giving booth or the Winspire booth. We'd love to meet you and talk all about event fundraising. So thank you, Tracey, for joining me today to share some of your infinite wisdom.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Always fun to do a webinar together with Winspire.
Awesome. All right, great. Let's tell us a little bit about Greater Giving and just briefly what you've been up to.
Yeah, so Greater Giving, we started as the company Auction Pay back about 16 years ago, really just to help nonprofit organizations streamline their check-in and check-out processes. So that's done through our software platform now that's cloud-based technology that allows you to quickly and easily and also securely check in guests, pre-swipe credit cards for bidding on event night, and then process transactions after your event is over and completed. And then we also have, other features that wrap into that as well, like online bidding, online payments, where you can sell tickets, collect donations all online, and a variety of different resources that we provide to nonprofit organizations as well. We have over 10,000 nonprofit and school clients all over the country, and we've processed over $5.5 billion for nonprofit organizations since our inception. So a long time working in the fundraising industry for our company. A lot of people here have amazing industry knowledge when it comes to fundraising events, and I'm just excited to be a part of what it is that we get to do every day, which is help you raise money.
Love it. That's great. It's a big number. It's a lot of zeros.
It is. Yeah, I know. It's impressive to see it like that.
Right. So I understand you have a special offer. Why don't you briefly mention this?
Yeah, this is a great resource. So like I mentioned, we provide tons of free resources to nonprofits and schools focusing on fundraising. And last summer, we released our 26 proven revenue enhancers for your fundraiser. So we work with all kinds of different benefit auction specialists all over the country, auctioneers, event planners, and they are partners of ours, just like Winspire is. And we created a book that's 26 different revenue enhancers. So they're games like Heads and Tails or Wall of Wine, Dessert Dash, all of those different things that you can add into your event to maybe add a little bit of spice, something different that your audience hasn't seen before, and also raise a little bit more money for your cause. So at the end of the webinar, Ian and I are going to pick one lucky person to receive a hard copy of this Revenue Enhancers book. And if you want to download a digital version of it for yourself, you can go to our blog resource library and download a free PDF of it also.
Fabulous. All right, great. Thanks for that. Briefly, real quick about Winspire, for those of you who are maybe not aware, we are a company that specializes in travel packages, no-risk travel packages for your live and silent auction and raffle prizes. We have been in over 48,800 events globally. We've helped serve over 91,500 satisfied winning bidders to whisk them away on ventures around the globe that we love doing. We love specializing in travel and specializing in fundraising. And we've helped raise just shy of $55 million for nonprofit causes since 2008, and we have a full catalog of over 200 unique experiences. And just real quick, for those who are not familiar with what no risk travel is, our packages, all of our travel packages are free to reserve for your event. It costs you nothing to use in your event, to reserve for your event. You can promote it to your audience. You can sell as many times as you can at your event, whether it's in the live auction, in the silent auction, or as a raffle prize, and then you keep all the proceeds above the nonprofit costs. Those go straight to your bottom line. So it's a great way to round out your live auction offering, and that's part of the reason why we're going to be talking about live auctions so much today. Before I get into the summary here, I wanted to make sure that we hear from you guys. There's a little questions panel over on the right side. Make sure that if at any point during the presentation you have a question for us, that you put it there. We'll be having a Q&A session at the very end. That is always a great, kind of back and forth to hear from you guys. So throughout we're not going to be answering them during the presentation, but at the very end, we'll be getting to those. So make sure you're putting those in. Today, here's the 4 things we're going to be talking about. First, we're going to go over Tracey and mine's top 3 procurement tips for the live auction. Then we're going to talk a little bit about underwriting live auction items and how to sell multiples of both donated items and consignment or no risk packages. Then there's the actual nitty gritty of live auction selling best practices. What are the best ways to go about selling your packages? And then finally, what are some of the top selling packages of 2018 so far? So before we get into that, let's go ahead and start with an audience poll. We want to hear from you guys and hear what your biggest live auction woe is. Is it A, procuring enough quality items, B, selling items for over the fair market value, C, attracting the right audience, getting enough money in the room, promoting live auction items to secure interest, that's D, or all of the above? So I'm going to launch this poll right now. We're going to want to hear from you guys. You should see something pop up on your screen and go ahead and answer there. So we're going to see what you guys say real quick. We have almost half of you voted so far. I'm going to give it another few seconds. All right. 3, 2, and a few more rolling in, and 1. We will close it there. Let's see what you guys said. All right, fascinating. So kind of all of the, of course, there's a lot of all of the above, which that's good to know that we're here to learn today on how to hopefully solve some of these woes. But I see there, I'm not, to no surprise, Tracey and I were kind of talking about this before, and we kind of guessed that procuring enough quality items and then attracting the right audience to actually purchase those items was going to be probably the 2 most popular ones. But it goes to show that hey, we're all trying to learn about everything about the live auction to make sure it's a success. Tracey, what's your reaction to this?
Sorry, I was on mute there. Yeah, I not surprised, all of the above. Glad we put that option in there and didn't force people to just pick one, I guess, Ian. But I think we'll definitely try to hit on most of these items in the presentation, and I made a note to try to circle back on those top 2 definitely throughout the presentation as we can.
Fabulous. All right, let's hide those. We have one more poll. I always like to get a good sense for how many live auction items you guys are typically putting out there and offering to your audience at your event. I know it can vary quite a bit depending on the size and scope of the event, but how many live auctions do you typically include? I'm going to launch it here. Is it 0, 1 to 4, 5 to 7, 8 to 11, or 12 or more items that you put in your auction? Maybe you don't have a live auction. Maybe you're here to learn about how to do a live auction and you've never done one before. So you can answer A for that. But I want to get a good sense for how many items you have. Go ahead and vote now. We'll do 2 more seconds. 1. All right. Great. Okay, this is encouraging. I'm happy to see that we have a good kind of roundabout numbers between kind of 5 and 12. What I always like to say is the amount of live auction items you should include are however many you can sell in under 45 minutes, right? Because that's about the attention span that you have, when people are paying attention, usually, in the middle of dinner, towards the end of dinner. After anything over 45 minutes is going to be too many items, because you're going to start losing people. And if you can sell, a good auctioneer can sell an item in about 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes. So you can easily fit in about 10 items into that 30 to 45 minute range if you have a professional doing it. If you don't, that stretches to maybe 4 to 5 minutes, and then you're talking about a little bit less. But don't be shy about putting enough items out there, because even if they don't sell, it doesn't it doesn't hurt you, right? Especially if it's a consignment item. Donated items, you definitely want them to sell out there, but it's better to get more items out there so you have a wider range of things to offer your audience, so you can see if you can spark some interest and get those high bids going and start to identify those high net worth donors in your audience. If you have fewer items, that's gonna be harder to do, right? Your chances of actually sparking that interest is gonna be much lower if you don't have as many items out there. So you're actually leaving money on the table if you don't put, if you're not putting more than 7 to 10 items out there. What do you think there, Tracey?
No, I definitely agree that all of those numbers make sense to me. And the timing, I think, is always the biggest thing. It's so interesting. You sit in a room of an event and you hit that 9 p.m. time frame and everybody is done. And so you
Right.
want to kind of engineer everything that happens throughout the evening from a timing standpoint so that you are certain that you are capitalizing on the majority of your guests in the room and that their attention is high and focused in on what you want them to be focused on, which is donating to your cause.
Totally. Yep. And usually the live auction and fund need or the direct appeal go hand in hand. So you really want to build that in terms of timing. I love what you say, construct everything around the timing of it, right? So that has everything to do with how many items you put out there. So make sure that within an hour you can do the live auction and the direct appeal, and you should be good. All right, I'm gonna hide these. Thanks for your feedback, folks. Let's move on to the top 3 procurement tips. I know one of the most important parts about any live auction is making sure that you have the right items to put in front of your audience so that they actually bid on them. There's nothing worse than the live auction getting everyone excited to go, and then the first item goes up, and then there's crickets, right? No one's interested in the package that you're putting out there. So, and it can be really difficult to go out and procure and get donated, really cool, unique, exciting packages that are going to get people excited and get them to want to raise their paddles and bid. So spending your time on the procurement side is really important, and being strategic about it. So I'm going to start with my tips real quick, and then we'll go to Tracey's. These are my top 3. For me, it's all about, it's funny, we just talked about time as far as the timeline of the event, but it's just as important when you are in the procurement stage, pre-planning, prepping your event and procuring those items. Be really, really careful about how much time you're spending on the silent auction. The silent auction is important. Yes, it is a revenue generator at your event. It's something that's really important to have during cocktail hour and before people sit down, but it is not the main money generator. The live auction is where you're going to generate the most of your money if you do it correctly, right? And the silent auction can become a huge time suck just with the amount and the magnitude of items that you're accepting and trying to organize and label and display and put out on the tables. And if you're spending time on the silent auction, that means you're not spending time on the live auction. So you need to make sure that you are focused on how you're using your time and dedicating enough and scheduling enough to be strategic about going out and procuring those live auction items, right? And I've seen it time and time again where they'll spend all of their time on the silent auction, and then they'll come up with 3 or maybe 4 live auction items, and then they won't be satisfied with the end result, which is how much money they've raised, right? You got to make sure that you're going out there and spending the time necessary to go network and meet people and ask for those bigger packages that you can then put in the live auction, right? And that starts with a strategic approach. The live auction is different from the silent auction. It's not about going and knocking on every single retailer's door and seeing what they can give you, right? You want to make sure that you figure out what you're looking for first. And Tracey's going to talk a little bit about this, knowing your audience interests, and then having kind of like a meeting or procurement party in a second. But once you've found out what you're looking for, then you can go figure out, okay, who do we know in our Rolodex? Who knows who? Where do we then go find these things? How many businesses in our local community provide this service that we can then go solicit to ask for that donation? And if you are strategic about your approach, that is going to translate or lend itself really well to best use of time, because you are being very intentional about the steps that you're taking to go get these items, as opposed to just, hey folks, let's hit the pavement and see what we get, all right, and then trying to patch together these very loose, items that don't really make sense. You want to create something that's very specific. And that goes to my next tip, which is be specific with your ask, right? Don't leave it up to the donor. Once you've figured out, okay, we're going to create a date night package, for example, right? And you're going to go solicit a restaurant, right? Don't go to the restaurant and say, hey, what could you contribute to the date night package, right? I'm going to give you a little script right now that helps you be specific with your ask when you approach. And this can go for any business. It's not just a restaurant, but if you're putting together a live auction package, you say, hey, we're putting together an ultimate date night package for the live auction. We would love to feature your restaurant, right? Then you want to go and you want to make them feel like they need to be part of something bigger, right? That they're already excluded and they want to jump in because, hey, we've already got XYZ limousine company has given us 6 hours of limo service. We're working with Saks on getting 2 $500 gift certificates for the clothing, and we've secured tickets for the opera, right? You can say these things to cue them in to say, hey, we're creating something really cool and really big that you're going to want to be a part of, right? As opposed to just saying, hey, could you donate a dinner for 2 with wine pairing, right? You want to say, you want to make them feel like they're part of something bigger, right? And then this is the kicker, right? We're seeking a high-end restaurant like yours. And what you're doing here is you're implying that you're going to be going to other restaurants in the area, right? We're seeking a high-end restaurant just like yours to round out this package, and we would be so grateful for a dinner with 2 for wine pairing. Now you're very specific about what you're asking for from them. You've implied that, hey, even if you aren't able to do it, we're going to be going elsewhere to go find this because we're creating this date night package regardless. And you've demonstrated that, hey, there's other people on board, and this is something you're going to want to be a part of. So being specific with your ask is so crucial when you're going out there and doing your procurement efforts. So best use of time, form a strategic approach, and be specific. Tracey?
All right. Well, those are all fantastic tips, Ian. And I think all of these, all 6 of our tips in total, I think all tie together with each other, because I don't feel like you could do one without doing the others as well. So
Right.
my first tip is, and Ian kind of hinted at this earlier, and we talk about this quite a bit, host a procurement party. And so what is a procurement party for those of you who aren't aware? It's basically just a fun get together for your committee, your board, your staff, to discuss, what it is you want to go out there and go to those targeted strategic businesses and ask for donations for your live auction specifically. Make it something that's fun for people to attend. Try to take it outside of your office, either in someone's home or a restaurant. Serve food and drinks. Make sure that everyone has a great time. But also that comes with a caveat, of course, but be sure that you have someone in charge of taking the lead of the procurement brainstorming process, basically. You don't want to waste the time of everyone that's there. Obviously, I know that I've, worked on committees before, and I always hate it when I go to something like this and the time, it's like, okay, all right, let's get brainstorming. I've been here for 30 minutes and we haven't come up with any ideas yet. So be sure that you are mindful of the time that you are spending together. I know that it's great to see each other and you want to have fun, but at the same time, make sure that you're timely. Someone's in charge of making sure everything runs smoothly. You have a great discussion about your wish list and what you want to see procured, and that you get it done in a timely manner. And then we like to call this the Kevin Bacon rule. I think everyone's familiar with this, but we call that the three degrees of Kevin Bacon, or 3 degrees of separation.
The Kevin Bacon rule is actually 6. So the Kevin Bacon rule is you are 6 degrees of separation from anybody on Earth. Anywhere on the Earth, you can basically get Kevin Bacon as you can meet Kevin Bacon. If you meet 6 people, you can get to Kevin Bacon. And you can do the same thing with your sponsors and your donors in your community.
Absolutely. So really the point of that is just to encourage your team while you're, after you come up with your wish list, encourage everyone to, to dig into who they know, their friends and family. Who do their friends and family know? And how can you get to the items that you are specifically looking to target to include in those live auction packages after you've done a good brainstorm? Another way that you can kind of try to get some some of those more elusive items. You can always turn to social media. I think that it's a great opportunity for you to reach out. You never know who could have a connection to someone that has the exact item that you're looking for, but just be sure, like Ian mentioned, that you're specific in your ask. So don't just go post on social media, hey, we're looking for item donations. Be specific in what you're looking for. Post about it and say that you're specifically looking for a 2-night stay at a specific resort or a dinner gift certificate to a specific restaurant. So that's just another way to kind of take it outside of the room of the procurement party, but seek out the items that you're looking for. And then the final tip on hosting a procurement party is definitely make sure everyone leaves with a clear action plan. Again, with the timing standpoint, you don't want everybody to leave the room and then wonder the next day what it is they should be doing to try and procure these items for your live auction. So be sure that everyone leaves with a clear plan of action and that everyone's on the same page in terms of what items they specifically are out there looking for.
Yeah, use those sheets of paper, those kind of big sticky note poster things with markers, right? Put them up on the wall. Make sure you're writing down item ideas and then kind of have columns, right? Like each sheet can be a category type, like experiences, items, various sports, and then list the items and then have a different column for who's going to be responsible for that, right? And everyone has their Rolodex in their pocket with their smartphone. Have people kind of be vocal. Okay, so who knows someone who can do this? Have names of people who might be able to help, and then names of people who are going to be in charge of getting in touch with those people. I love that idea, the action plan that Tracey just mentioned.
Yeah, and then one of the other things too about not only having an action plan, but be sure that you have a way for people to quickly and easily keep track of what it is that they're doing. I know that certain committees that I've worked with previously, we've used Google Drive, which is one of my favorite tools. So we able to quickly go in and update everyone on the committee what's happening with a certain item or a certain package, where the request is at, and all of that, so that everyone's on the same page and you're not duplicating efforts.
Love it.
All right. Tip number 2, understand or know your guests. Super important. I think Ian kind of covered this a little bit, but I would hate to see you go through all this effort to procure a package that you think, or your committee thinks, or your board is going to think, oh, that's a great package, everyone's going to love it. And then your auctioneer gets up on stage to sell the item and it's a complete flop. So one of the biggest tips with avoiding that is understanding and knowing your guests. So you want to know their interests. Not every single group of donors are going to have the same set of interests. I know that an organization that I worked with previously, we did basically like a mandate for every month for a year, and it sold like gangbusters because we had a bunch of men in the room, and we knew their demographics. They were, 30 somethings, 40 somethings, and we knew that all of the items in that particular package were going to be of interest to them. So it was a specialty brewing experience with a local brewery. It was a round of golf. It was a cigar bar. So all of those items we knew were going to be a good fit for our guests that were in the room. Would that package sell well with every single audience? Not necessarily. So you really need to understand who you're selling to in order to create the correct packages for them. Not every group of donors is going to be interested in international travel. Everyone thinks that international travel is going to sell fantastically. Everybody wants to go on a fantastic trip all over Europe, right? Well, maybe not. Maybe you have a group of donors that wouldn't necessarily interest them. So be sure that you do your research, do your homework so that you understand who you're selling to and that you're meeting their needs in the room on your event night. And I mentioned demographics are a piece of that. And then finally, price point for your packages is a crucial piece of understanding your guests as well. You want to know and try to understand as much as possible what types of budgets these people are coming into your room with. Of course, a lot of times we could over and underestimate this because you really never truly know exactly what someone's willing to spend on a particular item that catches their interests. But do your homework. Again, try to be able to judge where your guest budgets will be, based on historical data of your organization, packages that have sold well previously, what specific donors have spent previously, and then be sure that you have also done a great job of promoting your items in advance. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later, but that's a key piece of allowing your guests to pre-decide or determine what they're interested in and how much they're potentially willing to spend on event night.
Love it. So good. Great examples.
Tip number 3, use historical data. This is what I was just hinting at a second ago. You want to be sure that you're looking at, if this is not your first year doing a live auction, what has sold well previously is crucial. Be sure that you review the package sale price versus the package value. What you're seeing here on this slide is actually, it's a report from Greater Giving. It's called the Package 05 report, and it's showing you exactly the value and sale and the percentage of the sale value of the item. So this is a crucial report for you to run after your event is over, so you can see exactly which items were of high interest to your audience based on how much they sold for compared to their value. And you can also run a similar report to this that also shows you sales by category. So say that you have a group of items that are all sports related, and a group of dining packages, and a group of travel packages. You can also take a look at all of those different categories and review which items sold for the most percentage over their fair market value, showing you the highest level of interest of your audience for specific packages.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about underwriting and selling multiples. Underwriting, very straightforward. It's for those of you who are not familiar with maybe the term, it's basically sponsors, right? Securing sponsors for specific expenses for your event. Commonly people get the band underwritten, or the flowers, or the food, or the dining tables, or the venue. But people often forget or don't realize that they can absolutely get sponsors for live auction items, which is so crucial, because that can really give you some spending power to go not only secure some really cool items in your community if you have some money to throw around, but also gives you another way and venue to really recognize your donors. And the live auction is such a really important piece of the evening, because you have everyone's attention, right? Otherwise, people are socializing at their tables, but the one time at the night where everyone is focused on the center of the room is during the live auction. And so when you have somebody who donates a live auction item, it's a fabulous way to recognize those sponsors when right before you're about to sell. You see the auctioneer, and the following Napa Valley package was donated by Mr. and Mrs. Smith, sitting here right here in the front row. Round of applause. Okay, let's start the bidding, right? So the best time for publicly recognizing donors is during the live auction, which is why securing underwriters for live auction items is such a fabulous tool for you. And it's especially when you're dealing with kind of sponsorship levels, kind of local businesses, things like dentists, lawyers, doctors who don't really have services or things that they can donate. Underwriting the cost of a live auction package that they might be interested in, or they know their friends might be interested in, is a great way to give you insight on their interests, and also allow them to participate in a very public way. Because a lot of these events are about recognizing these big donors publicly. Great. So selling multiples. This is such an important piece of the live auction that is, underutilized in many cases, but we see a lot of people do it very, very successfully. And it's the way you really amplify the amount that you raise in the live auction. We're talking multiples over just selling for a singular high bid to one winning bidder. We're talking about selling to multiple bidders, and there's various ways of doing it with both consignment items, no risk travel packages like we sell here at Winspire, or donated items. So I'm going to go through examples of both. But first, why is it important? Well, I wanted to illustrate this because this is so crucial, right? Those second highest bidders, those underbidders, those people who don't win an item at the live auction, where does that revenue go? Right? If you have 10 winning bidders here who each bid at $5,000 and they win their package, and you've raised $50,000, that's great. What happened to the 10 second highest bidders, those underbidders who didn't win anything, who maybe bid at $4,500? That's $45,000 that maybe is going unsecured because they didn't win anything. and they maybe bid on one package they were interested in, but they weren't interested in anything else, so they didn't bid that $4,500. So there's an untapped revenue source if you're only selling to one bidder at a time for each package. Okay, let me demonstrate here with a really simple kind of dinner party example. Let's say you get a dinner party donated, right, from like a local chef is going to come do a 10-person dinner party at your house with wine pairings, the whole shebang. And I'll talk about the kind of the donation aspect of this afterwards, but I just really wanted to illustrate how much more money you can make by selling multiples with this example here. So let's say the bidding is up at $1,500 for this dinner party, right? And you have one bidder who's bid at $1,500. You've now raised $1,500, right? Bidder two, you've got it up to $1,750. You've now raised $700 or $1,750. And bidder number three, $2,000. And can I go going once, going twice? All right, sold to one bidder for $2,000. You've now raised $2,000. Now, what would happen is if instead of selling it to that top bidder, you drop down to $1,750 and said, you both get it for $1,750. You just went from $2,000 up to $3,500, right? Now watch this. What happens if you sell it at that first bidding price of $1,500? You've just gone from $3,500 up to $4,500. Now you have three bidders who paid less for the item, so they're happier, right? And you've raised more than twice the amount than you did before. Now you might be asking, Ian, how the heck do you do this with a donated item if the restaurant or the chef is only going to donate it once? Well, here's your script. When you're going out and you're procuring from a restaurant or from a chef or wherever you're going for these items, you say, Miss Restaurateur, thank you so much for donating this incredible dinner. If we happen to have a real lightning strike at our auction and are able to sell this restaurant package at a very high price, would you consider donating a second identical dinner? More often than not, they will probably succumb. They'll say, sure, yeah, that sounds great. But what happens if they say no? Even if they say no, find out what the retail price would be for that dinner so that you can sell it anyway, because if that price goes high enough, you're still going to be able to make money on that package if you can buy it at the retail price. And I'll show you just that same example. Let's say that bidding, we get three bidders that go above or go up to the $2,000 mark, right? And that dinner, that chef dinner cost $1,000, right? So now you have three bidders at $2,000. The dinner cost $1,000 for two of the bidders. The third one was donated. You've raised an additional $1,000 for those first two bidders, and then $2,000 on the third. So you've more than doubled your money, or you've doubled your money, right, on that singular package. If you only got it donated once, but you knew the retail price was $1,000, right? You still sold it two more times. You had to pay $1,000 for each of those, but you raised an additional $1,000 on each of those. So then you've raised a total of $4,000 instead of just $2,000 by selling it to one bidder. I hope that makes sense. The idea here is that by selling more items, right, you're going to raise more money. It sounds simple, but it's true, right? It can also work really, really well, and we see this all over the place with our packages, with our no-risk travel packages, right? Our no-risk travel packages have a nonprofit cost that's set, and you keep everything above it, right? The best way to raise the most with these is to sell them multiple times. We'll use this example that's really popular, our Become a Sonoma Valley winemaker, intimate blending seminar, winery tours, tastings, Fairmont Sonoma Mission Inn with airfare for two, right? Nonprofit cost $29.50. All right, so you have the current bid. We recommend starting at 20% over. So let's say you start at 36, you get it up to $5,000, right? Which is very common for these packages. You have one bidder at $5,000, and then you have your second bidder. You get it up to $5,500. You've now raised a total of $2,550, right? If you back out the cost of the package. And let's say you have a high bidder at $6,000. That's fabulous. You've now raised over $3,000 just by selling that package once. Well, now watch this. What happens if we go all the way back down to that bidder one's price of $5,000 and you sell it 3 times? You've now doubled your money. You've more than doubled your money on that singular package. And now you have 3 bidders who are paying $1,000 less, or actually one bidder that's paying $1,000 less, and the other bidders are paying less than they would have otherwise. They're happier because they're paying a lower amount, and you've raised twice as much money. I'm going to go back to this slide. You have a top bidder of $6,000, right? That initial bidder of $5,000, right? You've raised, if you only have one winner, you've raised $3,000. If you sell it to all 3 at $5,000, you've now raised $6,150, which is more than double, right? Now look over there in the left-hand corner, get these underwritten. If you get this package underwritten, the amount of revenue that you raise in that package is going to go even higher, right? You can add another $29.50 on there, right? And you can even get a law office or a doctor's office to say, hey, if we get a really high bid on this amount, would you be willing to underwrite the cost of 2 packages, right? Even if 1 out of 5 places you ask say yes, this is where you start making thousands and thousands of extra dollars in your live auction. And this is how you do it. This is how the big leagues do it, right? To gain that extra traction. And one of the most important parts about selling multiples and the most crucial parts is hiring a professional to do it, right? A professional benefit auctioneer is going to know how to do this, is going to know how to pull that out of the audience, is going to know when to sell multiple and when not to, right? One common misstep that I see a lot of times is nonprofits selling multiples, one item after the other, and you don't want to do that. You want to keep people guessing, right? You will only want to put an item where you can sell multiples, and then an item where you can sell once, maybe then another item where you can only sell once, and then one you can sell multiples, right? And you can do that when you have 7 to 10 items. But a professional benefit auctioneer is going to help guide you on this because they do it all the time, every weekend, and they know what works, right? So it's really important that the investment of a professional benefit auctioneer is going to pay dividends just in your ability to sell packages multiple times. All right, selling live auction items. Let's talk about that. Tracey, I think this is you. We'll start with promotion, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I echo everything you shared, Ian, and especially those benefit auctioneers. They are worth their weight in gold. Be sure that when you are working with someone, you're seeking out an auctioneer, that you specifically seek out someone with the BAS or Benefit Auction Specialist designation, which is different than just a general auctioneer. A general auctioneer, their training is to, sell the cattle or sell the cars for the highest price point. But a professional benefit auctioneer, a benefit auction specialist, their focus is on helping you pull dollars out of your audience. And so their training is much different than those who are, selling the cars, selling cows, and they really are very much worth their weight in gold. And we have, a number of them that we work with all over the country, and they are definitely well worth the money.
A good way to think about it, you touched on a really good point there, Tracey. A regular kind of cattle or car auctioneer, that they walk into a room and they look at the item and they say, how much can I get for this individual item, right? A benefit auctioneer walks into a room and looks at the audience and says, how much money can I get out of this room, right? And it has little to do with the actual items themselves and more to do about the cause, more to do about why people are there, and doing these very interesting tactics of like selling multiples and getting down on the floor and getting people into competitive bidding situations, right? Because it's not about the item, right? It's about the cause. It's about the why you're there to spend money, and they understand that at their core, and it's why they're so much more successful at it than hiring a local MC or DJ or weather person. A professional benefit auctioneer will pay for themselves in the first 5 minutes of getting up on that stage.
Absolutely. All right. End of side rant about benefit auctioneers.
Good side rant.
All right, so it is. It's a very crucial one. All right, so tips for selling your live auction packages. Obviously, so important is the promotion of those items, which we talked about in that survey. A number of you mentioned that was something that you guys struggle with. So here are some of my biggest tips and tricks when it comes to promotion. My job title is to work in marketing, which is exactly the way that you should approach promoting your live auction items. You want to market them to your audience. That means that you want to promote them on social media, to send emails about the packages to your guests to get them excited about what they're going to be bidding on. And then also having them in print and digital formats. Greater Giving has a great option. If you have our online payments tool, you can build an online catalog where guests can go online and pre-preview all of the items that will be available during your auction. One tip when it comes to social and email, I know it's so easy to get quickly overwhelmed with the scope of the project, especially when you sit down as a development staff member or the event coordinator to think about there are so many moving pieces happening all at the same time when it comes to your event, and frequently social media and email, the promotion of your items falls off or falls to the back burner. So my biggest tip is to have a strategy before, before you're in the grind of your pre-event happening, and build a promotional calendar. That's what we do as professional marketers. We sit down at the beginning of the year or every quarter and we review our promotional calendar. So I definitely want to suggest to everyone on the call today, a few months prior to your event, sit down with your calendar, pre-schedule exactly when you want to be sending these emails out. And even if it's possible, if you're this far along in the process, pre-schedule social media posts. You can do that. There are a lot of free tools out there that you can access to help you batch schedule messages to go out to your audience on social media. So as much as you can do that in advance, I want to suggest that to everyone on the call today, because it's going to help you so much when your audience arrives, your guests arrive on event night, and they know exactly what to expect during your live auction, and that they're prepared to bid. They've talked to their friends and family about what packages they're most interested in. They have collectively decided to pool their money to go in on a big trip to Hawaii for the family, and everyone's clear on what their plan is, what items they're interested in targeting and bidding on, and they come into your event and they're ready to raise their paddle, and they're ready to raise it for potentially, hopefully, amounts higher than you thought possible.
Great. You're priming the pump. You're getting people ready to bid.
Absolutely. Prep those elbows. Get them ready to go.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a crucial item, and we talk a lot about this. Ian and I have had numerous conversations about this. I think that a lot of people that work in fundraising events, benefit auction events all the time, we talk about this a ton. So we talk about item values. So you've got your fair market value or your standard retail value, which is the value in dollars of all of the combined items in the package. It must be known and shared with the winning bidder from a tax standpoint. So at some point, they do need to know exactly what the fair market value is of an item that they purchase. Because anything that's paid over the fair market value of an item can be tax deductible. Of course, obviously, we always advise donors and you as well to be sure that you're clear from a tax standpoint, what that looks like for you specifically, for your organization and for the donors. But it's important after the auction for taxes, but we always suggest that you try to avoid promoting it whenever possible. Obviously, it's clear a lot of times within your auction which items have a tangible value. So the actual value of an item, say you have a $100 gift certificate to a restaurant, that has a clear tangible value. But whenever possible, try to avoid promoting the fair market value of those live auction packages. Yeah. Because what you really want to build is the perceived value of the items. And that changes depending on the setting, the circumstances, your audience. Again, goes back to know your donors, know your people that are going to be on the room on event night, because an item could end up having a really, really high perceived value, which ends up being well over the fair market value. And it really just, it depends on what your donors want to bid on and what type of energy is in the room on event night itself. Totally. Sorry, did you want to add something in there, Ian? I heard you a couple of times and I just continued on.
No, I love when you barrel through like that. It's great. So much to share. The fair market value, you don't want to promote it, right? Because you're putting a glass ceiling on the amount they could potentially bid. If you list the suggested retail or the fair market value in the program or in the catalog when you're promoting it, or even at the night of the event, and you list it in there, people are going to stop bidding as soon as it reaches that value, right? And the objective here is to get them to bid over it, right? Based on the perceived value. And the perceived value is such an important concept here because it changes so much when there's supply and demand. There's crazy brands out there that, like something called Supreme, where they only release a certain number of items, and people pay ridiculous sums for a sweatshirt or a crowbar or a pair of sunglasses that are worth, a couple bucks, but because of the circumstances of the setting, they're going to pay way over that. Same with your situation in a charity auction. People are there to spend money for a cause. That's one really important thing. They're competing over it, right, by getting into bidding wars, and they're showing off for each other. So people are naturally going to end up paying a whole lot more for items than they normally would. Oh, and they're consuming alcohol most times, right? So all those things combined are going to contribute to the perceived value of a package, but you're going to cut yourself off the knees if you post or promote the fair market value of the item. The only time that comes into play is afterwards, when they're trying to figure out the kind of the tax purposes of it. So please, I can't stress this enough, do not promote the fair market value of an item. Leave it off completely, right? People don't need to know, and all they need to know is what the starting bid is, and then how much people are bidding in the room, right? So that's such a crucial part. And the perceived value, yeah, it's all about painting that picture for them in the room. And that's another thing that a professional benefit auctioneer is going to really help do, is they know how to sell these items and get people to envision themselves on these incredible vacations or doing the activity within their community to get them to want to bid, right? Such a crucial concept here.
Absolutely. And one other thing too is that, especially with perceived value, with those items that you are procuring and building out into your live auction packages, as much as possible, you want those packages to be unique and have one-of-a-kind experiences, which don't necessarily have a fair market value attached to them. I live and work in Beaverton, Oregon, which is world headquarters for Nike. I guarantee you that we have organizations here in the Portland metro area that are auctioning off in their live auction, a tour of Nike headquarters, which has crazy, unique, one-of-a-kind perceived value for a lot of guests at auctions here. But the fair market value, that's basically next to nothing, really, when you were thinking about it. But it's going to bring in a lot of money for your auction. So perceived value, crucial to your live auction packages, and make sure that that's what you're focusing on event night, and helping to build perceived value of your items as well.
Love that. I love your point just about uniqueness, right? The uniqueness of an experience could cost nothing, but just that little bit can add so much to how much people, I can't get that on my own. I got, I'll spend whatever it takes to get this, right? That's
exactly.
That's what we try so hard to do with our packages as well, is that unique bucket list type of experience.
Exactly.
I love this visual you guys came up with as far as the placement and sequencing. Why don't you walk people through this briefly, and we'll move on.
Yeah, I'll try and cover this as quickly as possible, since we do want to be a little bit mindful of people's times and get to the questions that have come in. I'm sure a number of you have seen this previously, so I'll cover it quickly. But obviously, the placement and sequencing of your live auction packages is really important to how successful they are in making the most money for your cause. This is our kind of example standard timeline. We like to use the item bell curve, which this has an example of selling 12 different items, and then over the span of an hour, you've started with a lower value, but that has wide appeal. You've worked your way up to the top middle. Package 6 is going to be, from a fair market value, but also a perceived value perspective, an item that's going to be super popular, that is going to have a lot of interest with your group. And then you work your way back down to number 12, working again from a value standpoint backwards, and whenever possible, selling popular items multiple times, which you can see also included here that Ian covered. And you've worked for an hour, 3 minutes per auction package. You've sold all 12 of your items, and your guests are happy, and you've not spent a lot of time trying to work through, a ton of live auction packages.
Great. Start bid.
All right.
This is a question I get a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely, exactly. So where should you start your bidding for your live auction packages? A crucial question we get all the time. I know that Ian gets that, we get that. with the silent auction, usually it's pretty simple and straightforward. Everyone pretty much says across the board, 50% of the package is fair market value, starting bid for silent auction packages. But with live, it's a ton more complicated. And this is, again, knowing your audience is crucial with setting starting bids. Knowing the perceived value of a live auction package is crucial. And again, your professional benefit auctioneer is key here. They will know exactly, based on their industry best practices, what they're seeing out at other events. They'll be able to help you make that decision. I'm definitely not going to be here to tell you exactly what the starting bid should be of an item. That's not my expertise. That's definitely where they should come in and help make that decision with you and alongside you to be able to get the most money out of the audience in the room on event night for your live auction.
That's great. Yeah, and just real quick, as far as starting bid on consignment packages or travel packages, we always recommend starting 20% above the nonprofit cost. That way, if you get one bid, you're going to get a 20% return, which is great. I do not recommend starting the bidding below the nonprofit cost. It's just risky, and you may not make any money if you don't get enough bids. So I just don't do it. I recommend starting well above, and typically it'll go up from there. So our average return on our travel packages is actually around 40%, which is huge. So you want to start and get the bidding started 20% over the nonprofit cost. That can depend on
that's specifically to those travel consignment packages like Winspire offers. That doesn't necessarily mean that you should do that for every single item that you're using in your silent auction or your live auction. Apologies. That's just Ian's example for those particular packages. But your benefit auctioneer really, again, is going to be key in helping you make that decision, and also reviewing the bidding on, if you're using items that you've used previously in your live auction, taking a look back at the bidding that happened on those and how much those items sold for last year is another good way to kind of gauge exactly where your audience's interests lie.
That's great. Cool. We're going to get to questions here in just a couple minutes. I thought I'd share a few of the top selling items of 2018. Just from a travel standpoint, these are our top selling travel packages so far. By far and away, the best seller is Tuscany Culinary Escape. This is a lunch in Tuscany, 5-night stay for 2 at a great resort. You can see some of the price points up here. I'm just going to list them real quick. Our Ireland Adventure, a really close number 2. We have the Hamilton Chicago, which has beat out the Hamilton New York. Just a fabulous show there. And then Napa Backroads and Railways, just a constant popular one that's been top of the food chain here ever since I've been here, actually. Just a fabulous experience in Napa Valley with the wine train, chauffeur, Meritage Resort, and airfare for 2, and then Punta Cana Resort down in Dominican Republic with airfare for 2 is another huge bestseller. So if you're interested in any of these, check out our website, winspiremb.com, and you can browse any of these on our catalog. Wanted to touch too on our hotel stays. We offer silent auction packages that are at a lower price point that are just hotel only nights. For boutique hotels from around the globe that are from preferred hotels and resorts. These are our top sellers so far that we still have some inventory in. We do have limited inventory for each of these, so it's important to hop on these sooner rather than later for your events coming up this fall. Surf and Sand Resort in Laguna Beach. You can see some of the suggested retail values and then the nonprofit price listed here for each. The Scarlet Huntington in San Francisco, Montage Deer Valley in Park City, Utah, the Coeur d'Alene Resort in Idaho, Banyan Tree Mayakoba in Mexico, and then the Hotel Convento Amalfi in the Amalfi Coast. You can see the nonprofit price for each of these is well below the fair market value, and so the idea here is that you just like our other packages, you start a little bit above that nonprofit price, and then hopefully it goes well above the fair market value for these room night stays. So we have various 2-night, 3-night, 4-night stay packages that you can put on your silent auction tables, or you can package it together with one of your own items and put it in the live auction. So check that out. You can go check out our silent auction hotels at winspireme.com/silent auction. It's just a great solution for some of the more price conscious bidders out there on those silent auction tables. With that, I want to thank Tracey and Greater Giving for joining us today and sharing their knowledge on everything to do with live auctions. You can visit their website at greatergiving.com. There's also a phone number there and an email address that you can get in touch with them. I think there's going to be Tracey's email at the very end as well. Did you want to say anything here, Tracey?
No, I just thanks, Ian, and I think this has all been great content, and I'm excited to get to the questions because I know this is always where we have some great discussions. Ian and I love doing webinars together because we always end up just having a great Q&A session. So hopefully a lot of you can stick around since we're almost at an hour.
Yep. We have about 15 at least questions that we're going to get to here. Again, check out winspireme.com if you're interested in learning more about our newest travel packages. We are giving away a $1,000 travel package if you subscribe to our blog. Next drawing is going to be September 1st. We just drew one very recently, so go to winspireme.com/giveaway to enter to win. And then, last but not least, we're doing a podcast. We have our podcast Events with Benefits. We have about 30 or 40 episodes out there that I do with Renee Zhao. She's the founder of Donation Match, and Danny Hooper, who's an fabulous auctioneer and kind of he's an old radio host. So he's just great to listen to and talk to people all about event fundraising. We're actually interviewing Tracey here coming up next week. So you can look for that episode coming up very soon, but you can check it out at eventswithbenefits.com or wherever you get your podcasts. So, and then there's that special offer again, Tracey, that you had. Definitely check that out. We're going to be picking someone and announcing them after. And I think you had a webinar coming up that you wanted to announce as well.
Yeah, we do. So those of you who are Greater Giving clients or maybe interested in taking a little bit of a deeper look into Greater Giving and our products and services, we're doing a Fall 2018 What's New webinar, which is coming up on Wednesday, September 12th, so just in a couple of weeks. And that'll be at 10 a.m. Pacific, and I will be sending out a follow-up email to all of you that registered for the webinar, and we'll have a link for you to register for that webinar. You can take a look at some new features that are being released in Greater Giving and how you can best utilize them for your fall or spring event.
Fabulous. All right, great. Let's get to some questions. What do you say?
Do it.
All right. This is from Shannon McLaughlin. Do you have an example of a Google Drive procurement sheet or collaboratively tracking packages and donations? I do not. Do you have anything, Tracey?
I can't say that I have a specific example, but that would definitely be something that, I think that we might consider putting onto the Greater Giving blog resource library, because I do think that that's a great tool for everyone to be able to collaborate and work easily together on. I saw someone else popped into the questions also about using Greater Giving to track items. Yes, definitely, if you are using Greater Giving, do input items that you have received as donations into Greater Giving, but my tip there is that use a Google Drive or Google Doc to help you track the items and their status and be able to easily keep track of where they are in the procurement process. And then once you do have the items, you can put them then into Greater Giving software.
Great.
It's a lot more easily agile to be able to use Google Drive.
Yep. Google Drive, you can collaborate from any device, any computer. It's just really handy. I know you and I use it.
It's what Ian and I use to collaborate on webinars.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we can see each other typing in the document. Great. Thanks for those questions, guys. This one's from Andrew Server. How do you pivot when you see your audience does not have such deep pockets, with live auction packages typically being higher price packages? Great question. One that I see a lot. It's not so much that they don't have deep pockets. That's the wrong way to think about it, right? It's more about putting the right packages in front of them, right? Because it's very easy to underestimate the giving or the spending power within the room. But if you're matching the audience interest to the items that you're offering, that's when the bid paddles start to go up. So whenever I'm in a room, in a live auction room where it's crickets, I know that the procurement team or the auction team didn't do their homework in making sure that the items that they are putting out there are the items that the audience wants to buy, right? There's such a crucial piece there in terms of positioning and finding out what people are interested in, and because the money will come although price point is something to consider in finding out what people are interested in buying, right? So making sure that the packages that you put out are not only what they want to buy, but at the right price point that people are going to be interested in spending. Because people in San Francisco are going to be spending a whole lot more money than people in Wyoming. Not necessarily, but there's just that's a tendency, right? So positioning the price point and the package itself is crucial to make sure that you don't have crickets in the room when you're offering those items.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that, Ian. And I think, kind of like the follow-up question, I'm sure, is what's on most people's minds is, well, how do I figure that out? I'm not a mind reader, right, Ian? So I think that the crucial key there is to have conversations with your guests, with your donors, with your sponsors, with your board members about where their interests lie with live auction packages specifically. It can never hurt to do a survey of your guests, either after the event is over, before the event happens, at some point along the way. I know that SurveyMonkey is a tool that you can build surveys for free, with your organization. It's a little bit more limited than having a paid subscription, but survey your guests, find out what they would be interested in, post it on social media. We're getting ready to do a live auction. What packages would you like to see? Do a poll, have people vote for the package they'd most want. Those are some ways to definitely gauge the interest level of your audience on certain items, and it will help you make a more informed decision on which particular packages to target for your live auction.
Totally, and that lends itself to Mefta Tehi's question about how to best gauge audience interest for live auction packages aside from data from previous years. A poll, one-on-one engagement. I'd say another great place to start is your board. Ask them, if you had $5,000 to spend, where would you go, right? And you can get, because the board is typically a good sample set of the type of people that are going to be there, right? Because they're out there recruiting, they're trying to get their friends and constituents to come, and doing that one-on-one engagement, just like you said, is going out there and asking people, hey, what are you interested in? Where do you want to go? And give them options, right? If I list 4 places that you'd be interested in going, which one excites you the most? It takes some, take some groundwork, some legwork to go out there and find it, but it's worth your time. That goes back to the best use of time, and going and doing your research and asking and surveying and polling instead of just knocking on doors and seeing what you get.
Absolutely. And I think that's, you should be doing a lot of donor cultivation along the way in advance of your event. And those donor cultivation coffees, lunches, meetings is a great opportunity for you to ask, like Ian mentioned, if you had $1,000, if you had $5,000 to spend in the live auction, what package would you be most interested in purchasing? And that's a key way to gauge the interest level of the key people in the room, which is exactly what you want to tailor those packages for.
That's great. That's great. This one's from Lisa. One's for you, Tracey. I've found that people have great ideas for items, but are reluctant to do the follow-up. Any tips on how to position the follow-up so you, as the chair, aren't stuck with everything? Such a pain point.
I feel it. I totally feel the pain. I think it depends on your group. First of all, I think it depends on their style, where they feel they don't feel too micromanaged, but they're also encouraged to actually get the job done, if that makes sense. I think maybe providing some sort of incentives along the way might be a good way to help them make those asks and get out there and do the work. Maybe if by a certain date you have this particular committee member has gotten X number of items in, they get some sort of special benefit at the event. I don't know. I'm thinking on my toes here, Ian. Do you have any ideas of ways to help push people to actually make the asks?
Totally. I think incentive is huge, right? And you can use some of the items that you've gotten donated, and it depends on how you feel about this, how your organization feels about this, but I've definitely seen it done, right? Because you can go out there and you get a ton of stuff donated for the silent auction, right? Gift cards are a great example of things that they don't necessarily bring in a lot of revenue in the silent auction, right? But you can use those gift cards, 10, 15, $20 gift cards, as incentives for your procurement team to go out and do these things, right? People will go out if they are incentivized to actually take action. So because not everything you get donated should go out in the silent auction tables, because you don't want to have a yard sale, right? You want to make sure that you have just the right amount of auction items out there that cater to your audience, so that people are competitively bidding. Because if you have too many, people aren't going to bid as much. They're going to go put one bid on each one. So what do you do with those extra items, right? You put them in a room, you save them for future events, or you can use them to incentivize your team. Again, it depends on how comfortable you are with that, with your event and the kind of donors and where the donations came from, but it's one option for you that doesn't require spending any money, because you can actually use those donated items to go get more donated items, right?
Absolutely. And I think one other point to that as well that I just thought of as I was sitting here is I did a webinar about utilizing millennial donors, and one of the things that I think you might see some success with in terms of incentivizing your committee members to get items is to do some sort of additional like social media promotion of the people that are on the committee that are trying to get those items donated. I think that especially if you have, some millennials working on your committee or helping out with your auction, that, a social media shout out or a special connection to a coffee with your board chairman, or some sort of special time spent doing something programmatic with your organization, just some other ideas besides just straight up gift card incentives that might be successful depending on your organization and depending on the members of your committee.
I like that. Yeah, access, sitting down. A lot of millennials these days, they're looking for mentorship, right? So giving them access to maybe your board, time is valuable, right? If people can donate their time, I think that's crucial. That's a great tip. I hadn't thought of that, Tracy. Thank you for that question. This is a great question from Shannon Spencer Brown. With the multiples in the first scenario, why did Ian suggest that the top bidder $2,000 be permitted to drop down to $1,500? Why not maintain the top bid amount and accept the lower bids from bidders number 2 and 3? The reason is, Shannon, is because if that top bidder finds out, right, they're not going to be happy, right? That they had to spend $2,000 to get this, and then the other people spent $1,500, even if it is for charity. You're running the risk of frustrating donors and making it so that they don't want to come back. Now, you bring up a really good point. Why drop down to $1,500? Good auctioneers will actually be able to bring those bidders number 2 and 3 up to $2,000, right? They'll actually say, hey, this is for charity. They'll bring it back to the cause. Why don't you guys come up to $2,000 as opposed to dropping that top bidder down? But you want to make sure that people who all win the package are spending the same amount. Otherwise, you run the risk of frustrating donors and making it so that they just feel, slighted or like it's unfair. So hope that answers your question. Great question though.
Yeah, and Ian, also to that point too, it's going to take you more time to get those other 3 donors to come up to $2,000 than it is for that winning donor at $2,000 to drop to $1,500. Totally. So from an auction standpoint, from a timing standpoint, it's going to quickly and easily go, all right, if you will also match at that $1,500 price point, all 3 of you are going on this trip. Sold, moving on. It's going to go a lot faster and be a lot easier and not waste a bunch of time. That's so crucial and valuable to your event.
Totally. Yeah, I've seen auctioneers sell entire tables, right? You get groups of people starting to bid with each other at certain price points. If you go down and match, will the rest of your table come in at $1,500? Then we'll do it. You kind of good auctioneers
Everyone's
are
going on the script.
Yeah, they're going off script. They're wheeling and dealing right on the fly. That's what's entertaining to watch, right?
Totally.
Great question, Shannon. This one's Bonnie Kirkpatrick. There's a movement afoot in my organization to not print a program for our annual gala. They feel people don't need it. It's dark in the room, people are talking, etc. With pre-promotion of live auction items, do you think it's necessary to also have a piece of paper on the table with the items described? What do you think about this, Tracy?
I totally think having a program is important because you're able to put a lot of details into that program that you're not going to be putting up on a slide, and that your auctioneer is not going to want to say from the stage during your live auction.
Yeah.
So a lot of times those are the restrictions, the blackout dates, the nitty-gritty details of what's included in a particular package, that you're not going to want to have the auctioneer try to rattle off on the stage. Again, from a timing standpoint, you're going to spend a bunch of time having them read all of these items off when it could just be in a printed program there, for the people to read and follow along with, while the live auction's going on.
Totally agree, especially with the blackout dates. I think it's important to list, but just make sure it's a one-sheeter, right? Don't print off a whole catalog. It's a waste of paper. It's a waste of your time. If you can fit just the items on a simple one sheet with the cause, remind people what it's for, and then just list the items. But make sure you're not putting the fair market value on there, right? Just the images that you can provide and the description. I think that's crucial. Hopefully that answers your question, Bonnie. This is an interesting one from Andrew. Would you suggest having the fair market value list on the bid sheet for a silent auction package? What do you think about that, Tracey?
I think
Goes back
you
and
go
forth,
back
right?
to, yeah, it goes back and forth. It depends on your audience. It also depends on how much you're hoping to get for certain items. I think that, Ian's point about garage sale, you don't want your silent auction to turn into a garage sale. People see the fair market value of an item and they'll probably stop bidding at the fair market value. But that's not always the case. It kind of depends on your event, your donors. And one tip that I would like to say, if you are including fair market value on silent auction packages specifically, is to include a buy it now price, which would be, usually we suggest your buy it now price is 50% over fair market value. So if your fair market value on an item is $100, that the buy it now price would be $150, and somebody could just straight up buy that item for $150. So if you are going to include fair market value, I would suggest pairing that with including buy it now prices.
I think that's great. Got a couple questions about from Rick, Darcy, and Michael Katz about the tax laws and fair market value. For legal purposes, do we need to, disclose it before people finalize their bids? And I think, it totally depends, right? Like on their state. And I would definitely consult. We're not tax specialists or tax lawyers.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I am not a tax professional. I am not here to advise you on when and where you need to include fair market value of items. I know for sure, sorry, go ahead, Ian.
No. Go ahead.
We have a tendency to talk over each other. I just was going to say that it's definitely something to include if you're using Greater Giving. If you have our software, include the fair market value of the package when you enter that package into the software, and then when you print the receipt, it will print off the fair market value, and it will on the bottom have a disclosure statement about when you print the receipt about the donor. Being sure that they consult with a tax advisor about the tax deductibility of items that were purchased at the event. So that's as far as I'll go in terms of tax deductibility.
Totally. And yeah, as far as I know, again, take this with a grain of salt. You do not need to show it because you're just offering these items up so that people can buy them. And then as long as it's on the receipt and there's things for after the auction, that's when it's most important. But again, please consult your tax lawyer on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for those questions. Tricia, how do we go about looking for a professional benefit auctioneer? You can contact either Tracey or myself. We have plenty of referrals, auctioneers that we absolutely love and cherish across the country, but you can also go to the Benefit Auction, as you can search for the National Auctioneers Association, search for the Benefit Auctioneer Specialist designation, and they have a place where you can search for people there, but definitely ask around, do your due diligence, interview several auctioneers to find out who's going to be the best fit for you and your event, and also make sure that they provide consulting. They're not just going to show up the night of the event. They're going to sit with you, talk to you about the items that you have, make recommendations for directions you should go and how you should organize them. The good auctioneers will care about you and your cause and sit down with you to make sure that your event is a success. So don't hesitate to interview several of them.
Absolutely.
All right.
And we have a list also, Ian, on the Greater Giving website. If you just go to greatergiving.com and you go click on partners, and then you'll see a list of auctioneers that we are partners with all over the country.
Great, great. This is Glenn Gilbert. Where would you put the paddle raise in the live auction with 14 items? Honestly, there's tons of different opinions on this, whether it's before the live auction, after the live auction, or in the middle. I would not recommend putting it in the middle because that ruins your momentum. The live auction should be a standalone thing, but whether the paddle raise goes before or after, honestly, I think it doesn't matter. As long as you have a little speech, little 60 to 90-second speech or video before the paddle raise, the direct appeal, fund and need is also what it's called. That's the most important part. And then whether that falls before or after the live auction, I honestly think it does not matter.
Ian, I would have to disagree with you on that, though. I'm going to throw a
Really?
wrench in here and say that
Go
I
for it.
personally,
Please, I love it.
when I go to events, I love it when it builds the excitement. The excitement's high. You've just sold a really high value, high sale, exciting live auction package. And then the auctioneer says, all right, everyone, we're going to have a quiet moment. We're going to remind you exactly why we're here this evening. And then you flip over to doing the special appeal. Personally, I think it's really effective, but that's just my perspective. And the events that I go to, I think it's really successful in gaining a lot of money for causes that I support. I like it in the middle.
There you have it. So it goes to show
you got to do your research.
Yep.
You got to do your research. You got to know what's going to fit your guests. So.
Yep. It goes to show that it totally depends. Like there's a lot of different schools of thought out there. So I totally respect that opinion. I've seen it work always. So great stuff. Let's see. We're going to try to. There's so many here. We might have to follow up with some of you after, but we'll give this another 15 minutes if you guys want to stick around. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Did you see one in there? Why don't you see if there's any in there, Tracey, that you want to grab?
Okay. This is an easy one you can answer, Ian. How many items available to purchase per guest in the silent auction night? Is there a number that you?
Yeah. So how many silent auction items do you recommend? I would say maximum, and this is actually more than probably should. The more I've started talking about this with various people, it's half the number of buying units in the room. So a buying unit is a wallet, right? A couple that arrives together. Let's say you have 300 people, buying units equals 150. Half of that is 75. I still think that's a little too much. I think it should be maybe a little less than that, like 50 items max for 300 people. What you want to create is some scarcity. You want to create a buyer's market, or excuse me, a seller's market, not a buyer's market. You don't want allow people to go around and just bid once on every single item. That's what happens if you have too many items. But if there's scarcity, people are competitive and end up bidding more on those items. So maximum half the number of buying units. I've heard other ways of breaking it down. How do you guys do it?
That's exactly what I would say is half the number of bidding units. A lot of people are coming in couples, so if you have 500 guests, you only have 250 bidding units, and then half of 250 though would still be a lot of silent auction items. So I've seen it really spans the numbers big time. Again, it just depends on your audience and what they're interested in, and you really you want to get. You don't want to just garage sale a bunch of items. You definitely want to try and be strategic and be sure that the items that you're putting out in your silent auction are going to raise the most money possible for your cause. And I did see one piece that kind of ties into that. There was a question that came in about online bidding or mobile bidding, and that is something that Greater Giving does offer. And if you don't already know that that's something that we have, you can take a look at our website and find out more about exactly what our online bidding tool provides to you and to your organization. And so basically, it would be a way to try and include a few more items for your silent auction, because guests would be bidding on those items from their mobile devices or from iPads with bid assistants that are, floating around the room during our cocktail hour. And it would be a way to, potentially up the number of items that you include in your silent auction, because guests wouldn't have to actually physically go write down their bid on a paper bid sheet. They'd be able to do it from their mobile device. They can set a maximum bid so that the system will automatically bid for them up to a certain price point. And it's an easy way to include some more items and to also raise more money for your cause, which we have organizations doing that all over the country.
Great. Yeah, and there's a quick question about blackout dates. On our packages, we are very upfront with those. Not all packages have blackout dates, but some do. But again, those are details that you would want to include on kind of a program, because they're not something necessarily that the auctioneer will talk about up on stage, but you do want to have them listed so people are aware. But again, we're very upfront with those. I had an interesting question about how to promote auction items if it does not include airfare. In other words, how does one go about being clear and straightforward that airfare is not included without reducing the perceived value of the package? Well, professional auctioneers do this the best, right? They'll kind of mention it offhand and say, well, while this package doesn't include airfare, the reason is because, of this, and this that is included in the experience, which makes it so unique, right? And then they go into depth, focusing on the experience, and why people would, want to spend the money to go there. But I do highly recommend, as far as building perceived value, including airfare. You're going to get a lot more money for a package in the end when you do keep the airfare in there. Just all in one package, people are going to end up spending more. So even if the price tag, the nonprofit cost goes a little higher because of the airfare, it can often pay off in dividends because of the amount people end up spending in the end. Let's see. Did you see any others in there? We could probably. We'll give it just a couple of seconds here. All right. We have a certain number of guests who like to leave before the live part of the auction starts. Any ideas for how to get them to stay in the room? That's a great question, Tori. I'd say if there's anything part of the event that you can keep them to draw them, right? Like an announcement, a speech, things like that to keep people in the room. I don't know if I have any other specific suggestions. Do you have anything in there, Tracey?
Sorry, excuse me. I would go with maybe building an incentive in of some kind, or doing some sort of revenue generator game. Here we're going to go back to the revenue generating book, but putting a game or something like that into either the middle of your live auction or after your live auction is over, so that way guests want to stay because they want to participate in heads or tails or the dessert dash or something like that. So they've got a little bit of money in the game because they've bought into whatever the revenue generator is, and then they're more likely to stay because they could win something. So that might be a good strategy to maybe approach getting those people to stay through the live auction, and then potentially give more to your organization, which is what you want them to do.
That's great. Janine Zupo just said, half the number of buying units seems so high. Our event is 700 guests. 175 silent auction items would be atrocious. Plus no real estate for many items. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, when you're getting that big, I would cap it at 100 max. I mean, I think you kind of cap it once you get above, a certain number, 50 to 75. It depends on your real estate, depends on what you're doing, because it's all about, again, how much time do you really want to spend organizing that many auction items when you could be focusing on things like the live auction. So I totally agree with you, Janine. You don't want to do 175 auction items, and neither would I.
No. No, definitely not. And I mean, only sell what you're going to, make the money on, and you actually want to take on in terms of organizing and coordinating and displaying. Every organization is going to be different. That's just kind of a general, industry rule of thumb kind of across the board. So yeah, I would not have 175 silent auction items.
Great. Well, let's take a couple more here. Tracey, do you have a good example of an item to begin your live auction? Seems like we always start with an item, and a few people are interested in this. From Jane Primo. I would say, yeah. What do you think? I usually say if there's one where you're going to have a bidder, and there's another thing. You can go out and get pre-secured bids from folks, right? Like board members who might be interested in a package. If there's a certain items that are going to be hot, that's a great item to start with, right? And so one thing that auctioneer Danny Hooper does too is he'll auction off something really innocuous, like a cheap flat screen TV that goes for $400, and he'll sell it on like the third bid below the amount that it's retailing for, like $200 or $300, and people will go, whoa, oh my gosh, that person just got a TV for way cheaper than I thought it would be, and then that perks people up, and then they go. I'm not saying you should do that, but there's different ways that you can get the bidding started and kind of get people to perk up and go. Another way to do it is just making sure that you have pre-secured bids on certain packages.
Yeah, I would say, your benefit auction specialist is going to be key in making this decision.
Yep.
I definitely would consult them on the placement of packages, the order in which you sell. They are experts in this again, and they are going to help you make that decision and fine tune it. You know your guests, they know auctions. So with your powers combined, you become, great decision makers in the placement of your packages for selling. But I would say, an item that's going to have wide appeal is going to be probably something that's local, something that somebody's not going to have to travel to do, and something that's going to have some sort of unique experience-based thing that's going to have no fair market value is probably going to be your best bet, because it's going to be interesting to people. It's going to be something they're not able to just go out on the street and purchase for themselves, and it will probably help you get people raising their paddles early on in your auction.
That's great. Yeah, I think, are you good? I mean, there's a few in here that I'll probably end up following up with specifically.
Yeah, I think we're well over time. So all great questions, and I love having great Q&A with you, Ian. But I think we should probably let everyone off the hook and go on with their day.
Let them get back to their event planning. Thank you so much, Tracey. It's always a pleasure collaborating with you on these, and it was a lot of fun putting this one together. And let's do it again soon. And with that,
absolutely, we will definitely do this again soon.
Cool. Yeah, and thank you all to those of you who are still here, stuck it out with us, and we'll be following up with some answers on a few of the questions we didn't get to, but thanks as always for joining us for these webinars, and we will look forward to seeing all of you hopefully back here again very soon.
Ian.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone wants to know who's the winner of our Revenue Enhancers book. So do you want to randomly pick an attendee that's still on the call? Stuck through with us.
Should I close my eyes and just point? What do you think?
Just pick someone.
Still in our call here. How about Shannon Steele?
Shannon Steele. All right, Shannon, you are the winner of our 26 Revenue Enhancers book, and I will reach out to you directly and get you your free copy. If you weren't the winner, you can still download it at the Greater Giving Resource Library.
Awesome, guys. All right, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll hope to see you back here very soon. Oh, and a recorded version of this is going to be sent out to everyone, so don't worry if you'll be able to see it. But thanks all. Take care.